focusing in on 9 through 12 English language arts. An overview of the THL implementation webinar series. Many of you may have attended our Adopt and Adapt Remote curriculums series. This is the second part of the series, which is a product-specific adoption, again, focusing in on 9 through 12. And then coming soon are going to be product and stakeholder-specific onboarding and technology supports. So be on the lookout for information for those as well. The objectives for today really are to review Texas Home Learning 3.0 frequently asked questions. Again, those of you that have been joining, some of this will feel very familiar to you. We're going to do a deep dive into Odell Education, Texas High School Literacy Program release materials. I'll walk you through the website and some of the Unit 1 materials, and then share when and where you can access materials for review and instruction. So that's our FOSI today. As a reminder, Texas Home Learning 3.0 is an optional aligned suite of resources. It consists of 3 major components: instructional materials, technology, and professional development. Districts may choose to adopt none, part, or all of these 3 components. A quick reminder about our technology offering. TEA has negotiated a statewide 2-year license for Schoology. You can see some information about this over on the right. Please go to powerschool.com Texas to learn more and to sign up. All right, our focus today is on 9 through 12 instructional materials, specific to Odell Education, Texas. Okay. A couple of quick reminders before we dive into the content. All instructional materials have been selected through a competitive solicitation process based on the ability of the publisher to develop high quality TEKS-aligned instructional materials designed for flexibility in the new learning environment and accessible to all learners in a home environment, a remote environment, and a traditional school setting. We do want to emphasize that it is not an off-the-shelf curriculum, and it is built specific to the situation in which we find ourselves in. And as such, it's being developed specifically for THL and customized for THL, and is really undergoing both development, review, and revisions in real time. So materials, as you know, are going to have a rolling release starting with Unit 1, which is today, and then we'll get into the future timeline as we go through this deck. Continuous improvements will be made to the materials, informed by feedback from Texas teachers and other stakeholders like yourselves. Again, this slide will look familiar to many of you. We have been naming the 6 criteria that you see on the right side of the screen as key to the products selected to be part of Texas Home Learning. Today, again, with a focus on 9 through 12 English language arts, we are going to dive into how these 6 criteria, criteria live within the product themselves and support students, teachers, and families. Again, our focus is on Odell, Texas High School Literacy Program, 9 through 12. Some frequently asked questions before we dive in to the product themselves are: 1, will the THL 3.0 scope and sequence align to the TEKS resource system scope and sequence? 2, do I need Schoology to use Texas Home Learning 3.0 instructional materials, and specifically Odell Education, Texas? And then when will materials be released? So we're going to work to answer these questions for you. Question 1, THL and TEKS resource system are 2 very distinct and separate curricular products, both of which include their own individualized scope and sequence aligned to the TEKS. So the Texas Home Learning product scope and sequence are strategically designed and unique to these materials and are not aligned to the TEKS resource system scope and sequence. TEA really does not recommend mixing and adapting the Texas Home Learning product scope and sequence with any other scope and sequence. And these products will include recommendations on how to follow a scope and sequence if you're adopting after the start of the year. So really understanding that we may have some folks adopt this fall. We may also have some folks choose to adopt this spring, and trying to support with recommendations around that. An additional commonly asked question is, do I need Schoology to use these products? No. Districts will be able to access these resources in a variety of ways. They're available through the vendor website, and that's actually what we're going to be looking at today, as the Odell Education Texas website. Districts can access resources through their Schoology instance, and they can access LTI code that will allow them to integrate resources into another LMS if they have not chosen to adopt Schoology. You do not need an LMS, again, to access the resources covered in today's webinar, because they are available through Odell, Texas, and Odell, Texas website. And then Schoology does provide features that will enhance the use of this product for teachers and students. Okay, I know we had a third FAQ question, which is, when will the materials be available? We're going to come back to that towards the end of this session. So just want to name that we are going to return to that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dive into the Odell Education Texas High School Literacy Program. Again, I apologize for the lost time. And if you could just bear with me while I transition screens here. Okay, in the chat, can I please get a confirmation that you can see the Odell Texas High School Literacy Program page? Yes, thank you. Oh, I love the participation, team. Great, thank you. Okay, so here's the home page. You'll see it's organized by grade level. I am automatically logged in, but you can see up here at the top, there's a spot for there will be a login spot. It is very easy to set up an account. You truly just enter your email address. It'll prompt you for a password. It may prompt you for a location, but it's really, I think, a 1 minute setup process, and then you are logged in and have this site here. So I'm going to start by going to 9th grade, and I want to highlight a couple of things. We're going to kind of walk through today, really thinking at the programmatic level, so thinking about materials that apply 9 through 12th grade. Then we're going to go into unit level resources, and then we're going to go into section and lesson level resources. So with that context, I'm actually going to back out for a second. In 9th through 12th grade, every grade level, you're going to see this bottom section, which is program resources. Every grade level will have these similar resources, and this is really the starting place if you're thinking about adopting and implementing Odell Education Texas. The program guide is a great place to go to give you a very robust, high-level overview of the instructional approach that these materials take, including things like, and you can kind of see on this table of contents, the guiding principles, the program design, the unit components. Sorry, team, give me 1 second. Supports for all students in meeting diverse learning needs, and then representation and awareness. So you're going to see a number of references and resources in this program guide that I think is just a really excellent place to start to learn more about these resources. Additionally, in the program resources for any one grade, you're going to see a course at a glance. And so this is a very high level picture of the units that are included in any one grade level. You're not yet going to see a sample scope and sequence for the entire school year that is at the TEKS level. We're really starting high level in part because, again, these materials are being customized and developed for our current situation. And so part of our process is to really be sure that as we go, we're reviewing content and we'll release course level scope and sequence and then unit level scope and sequence that are TEKS aligned throughout the course of our release. And so I'll show you what that looks like throughout our session today. But again, you'll have this high high-level balcony view of a course at a glance, you have some information on purchasing unit readers. And so here again, I think this is a question we get frequently. I want to pause to say all materials that you see on this website, so all of the programmatic level, unit level, and lesson level resources are freely accessible in perpetuity. So these materials are an open education resource and are available to us. The materials themselves, as I think is true for many high school English programs, are built around quality canonical and contemporary novels and texts, poems, short stories, etc., many of which are copyrighted. And so any district interested in implementing this program due to copyright issues would need to purchase some additional texts. And so you can see information on specific to purchasing unit readers, which are those sort of supplemental texts for each unit. So again, any articles, any short stories, any poems, etc., that are needed, that might be copyrighted, are going to be available through this section. And then again, want to stamp that the programmatic level, unit level, and lesson level resources are all freely accessible through this website. The other thing I will say is we know that districts may feel like cost of text could be prohibitive to adoption, and TEA is exploring options to support with that. So if you are a district or you are working with a district that is interested in adopting these materials but are concerned about the text or the cost of text, please reach out to us at the Texas Home Learning website and let us know, because again, we are exploring some options to help support with this. And then the last thing I want to highlight on this program level are the remote learning guide resources. And so I am going to click into this because this is one of the things I think really makes the Odell, Texas program very unique. And sorry, you can see my internet's going slow. I had to transition to my hotspot because everybody in my house is, of course, online, experiencing a lot of homeschool fun today. Okay, so Odell Education Remote Learning Guide. You can see the robust table of contents here, but this guide really does give a lot of guidance to any educator who is leveraging this content in a remote learning environment, including guidance on synchronous and asynchronous opportunities at the lesson level. And so you're going to see this again as a program level guide, but every unit also does come with a unit specific remote learning guide. So that is one of the really great features about this program. There are a couple of things I think I'd love to point out, but not sure that we have the time. I think one thing that I do believe is important is really just additional guidance on establishing a remote classroom culture. And so this is, I think, a pretty important piece for those of us currently in a remote learning environment still. Okay, so those are the resources again at the program level, and you're going to see similar resources in each grade level tab. I want to go ahead and move into a unit level example. And so I'm going to start with 9th grade Romeo and Juliet. In Romeo and Juliet, again, this is the first released unit for 9th grade. You're going to see at the unit level a unit overview, which is where I am now. You're going to see the culminating task. And so this is basically the end of unit assessment. It's built around a central question. You have the task here. You have the Romeo and Juliet evaluation plan. This is very much a teacher-facing resource. And then the culmination task checklist, which is very much a student-facing resource. I'm just going to click on one of these as a quick example. Again, this is the assessment and evaluation in this unit. It gives, this is a teacher-facing document. It gives an overview of the assessment and the assessment plan. It really guides the teacher through everything the teacher needs to know about the way students will be assessed. And in this particular assessment, students have 2 writing options or 2 essay options. The thing I want to go down to is really where educators can find the alignment to the TEKS, because I anticipate this being a big question. The culminating task TEKS alignment can be found here, along with alignment to the rubric and the task checklist, where that is also broken down by standard and by TEKS here. And then one of the things that this particular document does is it really then takes all of the section diagnostics, which I realize I have not previewed for you yet, but it takes these section diagnostics, which are the formative assessments built into the unit that lead up to this, this summative assessment or this culminating task. It takes those section diagnostics and it breaks those down here for the teacher. So it gives the teacher the task, as well as the TEKS alignment, as well as alignment by rubric component to TEKS. And so every unit does this, and basically is if you're going from a backwards planned unit level, it provides teachers with, here is what mastery looks like at the end of the unit, here's the assessment, and then here are all of the smaller formative writing opportunities within this unit that build towards this one assessment. So again, really taking this kind of backwards approach, starting with the end of unit assessment, which is the culminating task, and then showing the teacher the mini assessment opportunities leading into that through those section diagnostics. Okay, so that's all available to you on the culminating task tab here. There's also a text overview tab, which gives you everything you need to know about the text for this particular unit. These are the required text and media, right? Like in some cases, again, Romeo and Juliet, there are many film versions of this. So students will have the opportunity to see clips of various film versions, and then it gives some analysis about the text themselves. And so I think that is incredibly important for teachers and educators, because this program really is built around helping students access grade appropriate complex texts, and gives teachers some information about the background knowledge of an author or a particular text, and ways in which teachers can roll these complex texts out with students. And it does that for the anchor text for any one unit. So again, here Romeo and Juliet is our anchor text. And then there are a couple of core supplemental texts. So you can see that here. Okay, and then there's a materials overview for each unit. So basically for Romeo and Juliet, all of the materials you're going to leverage are included here for the teacher. If I go back to the unit overview, I can click on this unit is comprised of 4 sections, and each section again has an end of section diagnostic, all building to the section 5, which is, the section 4, which concludes in the culminating task. So section 1, again, you'll see up here my ribbon at the top. Each unit section has a section diagnostic, has texts that are covered for just that section, and then the materials. So all of this information, again, is in that unit overview as well. And then it includes the lessons for this particular section. You'll notice here, the section has 9 lessons before getting to that section diagnostic. And then there's some optional opportunities to revisit content based on students' mastery of the section diagnostic. So there's this like pause point where teachers and educators can kind of respond to what they're seeing in the data along the way. I'm going to go ahead and click into one lesson so that you can see at the lesson level. There are core activities for any one lesson, and then there's some optional activities for any one lesson. And this is lesson 1 for this particular unit, so it's going to be very standard. But if I click over here to lesson 2, again, you're going to see core and then optional. And so those are things that you're seeing throughout, although many of these, I think at the front end are core. Okay, and then one thing I do want to point out is when I click into a lesson, you're going to see teaching notes, and then this is the page a student would see. So a teacher is going to have really a student-facing view and a teacher-facing view. And here's where you can find the information These materials are also available as both a PDF and you can populate them into a Google Doc. And so if you're somebody who, wants to really say like, oh, there are ways in which I want to customize this particular lesson and adjust some of the text dependent questions, for example, you can pull this into a Google Doc. Okay, that was a very quick run through. I know we only have about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to go back into our PowerPoint for today. And want to just share a couple of additional information. And I know that there may be some folks working to answer some of the Q&As through the chat feature as we go. Okay, just making sure you can see my second screen. Okay, great. All right, coming up next. So materials access and upcoming webinars. Want to just highlight a few things for folks. The material I just previewed for you today, again, all of Unit 1 material is ready for grades 9 through 12. And then Unit 2 materials are coming sometime around end of October, early November, followed by future release dates here. And so we do want to stamp that release dates for all materials do depend on successful completion of the Texas Home Learning Review process. And so we really just want to make that clear because it does have an impact on our timeline. Reminder that instructional materials are posted on the vendor website and linked through texasHomeLearning.org. Upcoming webinars are promoted on TexasHomeLearning.org as well. And then coming soon and coming next are pre-kinder, integrated pre-kinder, K through 2 Spanish language arts, and then K through 5 social studies. Again, some next steps in terms of reviewing materials on TexasHomeLearning.org. You can use this to really stay in the loop and follow posted materials. Okay, I know that was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Sorry again about the tech glitch. Would love to leave the last 2 minutes to answer any questions that folks have, because I'm sure there are many. So I'm going to try to pop into the, okay. Primary question, how does the content rigor compare to TEAC's resource system? That's a great question. I think that's really something people are going to have to dive into and explore. I mean, I think all quality high school materials really are centered around students' ability and the ability of the materials to dive into complex texts and break those down in digestible ways to meet the needs for all learners. And so that is really what this set of materials works to do. I think an important piece here that you really have to dig into the materials is to see the embedded supports for all learners. And so there are places in those teacher lesson notes where you're going to find supports for ELs, supports for GT, and supports for special population students that really work to be embedded in the content so that all students are working on the same grade level content, but with some additional scaffolds. Okay. If somebody had a question about how long is each unit, it's a great question, and it is a little bit varied. I think units can extend between 4 to 6 weeks. And they're, again, part of what this set of materials strives to do is create some options and flexibility for teachers. And so again, every lesson has both core and optional activities. And depending on how you use those, it could extend the length of the unit by a few days. And then there are also these optional like pause points. And so depending on reteach needs and needs to just based on section diagnostics and culminating tasks, teachers can, the materials are designed to build in some flex days to address reteach options and instances where students haven't mastered content. So I would say on whole, you can expect these units to be between 4 and 6 weeks. And we are working to build a kind of a high level general scope and sequence. But if you're looking specifically at if you're thinking specifically about like a TEKS aligned unit calendar, if you go into the content at the unit level tab, there's a TEKS alignment option, which basically says like lesson 1, here are all the TEKS hit. And you can really kind of go through that to see for any one lesson what the TEKS alignment looks like. Okay, we are at time, friends, so I'm really sorry that was so short. Some of you might be joining our afternoon session and excited to see you then. Thank you again for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon on the next call. Thank you very much, friends. Bye.